Colin wants us to explain this though. Ramsey, Wilshere, Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain. Good young overhyped players who didn't quite live up to the hype. That's it.
Are we blaming Arsene Wenger here?
Is it Wenger's fault? That's, none of these players. I mean, did Theo Walcott not live up to, like, it wasn't his fault Sven put him in a squad.
Yeah.
You know, he, as we know, he scored more goals in the Premier League or in the Champions League than Zinedine Zidane.
Well, of course, the famous fact. I'd have it as a bit of a coincidence. I know Colin isn't going to like that, but almost a coincidence that these 4 young English lads went to pot after the Arsenal days. Like, maybe they got their best years at Arsenal in, and it took too much out of their bodies.
I think that there's probably a lot to be said for not having the whole of the club's future thrust onto your shoulders at a very young age, and you know, in other more successful clubs who are winning, they would have played less. There would have been less expectation, and so therefore the good stuff that they did would have been. I don't know. Maybe Jack Wilshere got kicked too much in the ankle, and that's a completely separate issue from what happened with Theo Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain. Like,
yeah, and there's an issue that you gotta.
Oxlade-Chamberlain wasn't at that level, really, was he? He's like a very good, competent Premier League player over a decade, who again has had loads of injury problems.
Yeah, something similar. I'd like to see not the same path being trodden by Ethan Nwaneri, this young 15-year-old kid who came on for Arsenal last weekend.
Yeah, like everyone's like, oh, isn't it great? The kid's played, and you're like, is it really that great for him now? How does he go back to being a normal 15-year-old for the next couple of seasons, where he now thinks, oh, I'm supposed to play, I'm supposed to be part of the squad every week, and that's not going to happen.
It's rare you see a 15-year-old seen as mature enough. Yeah, obviously you're the 16 and 17-year-olds who are seeing it. He had to use a different dressing room, I think, as the senior players for child protection reasons. So he was in his own little room while the rest of the team got changed. Like, which just shows how young he is.
Yeah, do you know? Do they think that through? No, we've set the record. Look how great we are. I have it on my CV now that I brought young talent through faster than anybody else. But like, did they really think it through?
Yeah, the thing with Nwaneri, he seems to be a player, but like a prodigious talent anyway. He has been always playing above his.
Is this something to make sure that he signs a long-term deal with them so he doesn't go for a free when he turns 18 or something? Is there like some weird ulterior motive here that's actually financially motivated as opposed to actually keeping the player's career long-term? Like, I don't know. It just there was a celebration of this thing, which is record-breaking, and so therefore it's going to be great. But is it always great?
No, like maybe Arteta wanted the lure, the luster of having played the youngest ever player in the Premier League. The record's always going to be broken. These records always are. Harvey Elliott's looked like it wouldn't be broken for years, and here's Nwaneri doing it. Like, apparently he scored in some scouting game. Was it 8-0 or something? He scored all 8 goals for his team at his age group, but got the scholarship. He's a really smart kid as well. Apparently would have got a scholarship nearly on his academic capabilities alone. Really bright kid, and maybe that's why he's been brought in. He's mature, he's bright, he gives off an aura of someone that's not 15.
Yeah, I mean that's all, and look, that's all great. It's just that you never know how someone's going to deal with the hype and the pressure that comes now with this, which was completely unnecessary. You know, like, they're 3-0 up. It's easy. You can go on at 3-0 up. It's like, but you're 3-0 up. You don't need this. Like, there hasn't been an injury crisis. This isn't COVID. The squad's doing great. You've real depth. Like, I don't know.
I think we've become accustomed to young players though. Like, with the hype that followed the likes of Wayne Rooney, for example, when he was 16, was at a abnormal level. I don't think that hype would be around a player like that again, because we're so used to big talents coming through. Do you think it's worse?
Well, I think it will be worse. Yeah, like I think like Wayne Rooney went as a teenager and was about to dominate a major tournament, but for injury. Like, I think, and you know, like, again, all these cases are different. But like, it would Wayne Rooney wish that he had come through as fast as he did, or had been given a bit more time to acclimatise to the pressures of being the most famous teenager in Britain?
But then, what is the age? What is the right age? Like, is it 16? Is it 17? Do you wait until they're 18? You could argue if you're good enough. If you're old, if you're good enough, you're old enough.
There's a difference between being good enough to play, and there's a difference between being old enough to manage your life and all of the stuff that comes with it, and like making sure that you got the right people around you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's in the club's interest, and sometimes it's in the player's interest, but like, those two things are not always the Venn diagram overlaps between the club and the team, but they're not a circle. Like, the club are interested in you as an asset and wringing out of you everything they possibly can, and you have to be interested in protecting yourself and making sure that you aren't in any way taking unnecessary risks. Is playing a 15-year-old against men unnecessary risks? I would say it probably is.
But then it's the manager's responsibility to play the player when he feels they are ready, as in...
But what's the manager's real responsibility? Who's the manager's real responsibility to? Ultimately, when it comes down to it, who does he answer to?
To the board.
And himself.
And himself as well. And the fans, I suppose.
Never the fans, really.
No,
it's not the fans, because the fans don't sack him. But that's all. His paycheck is connected to making sure that the board are happy. Okay, the fans can turn on a manager and they can get him sacked, and I understand the point you're making, right? But his job is to make sure that the club's shareholders make more money, and I don't know what the thinking here was, but there's just an automatic. Yeah, isn't it great? We've set a new record.
Is that the manager's job?
Constantly going forward.
It's the manager's job not to win trophies. Obviously, winning money is
no. I mean, that's like some romantic pie in the sky notion of football in the 70s.
Yeah, but it should be.
The manager's job is not to win trophies. The manager's job is to make money for the owners, and the owner's job is to make money, and that's what this sport is. And you're a Man United fan, so you know that.
Yeah, but the director, the club's directors need to be fairly in charge of. The chief executives need to be in charge of making money. By winning trophies, you're going to make the club more successful and more financially
Champions
liberal.
League qualification was the be all and end all, as we saw. Wenger's the last, I don't know how long, it seemed like forever. Was it 8 years? Was it longer? I don't know. But success was qualifying for the Champions League because they were rebuilding the stadium, and that's all that the owners cared about. Success has changed.
Yeah.
Success is now making money, because that's what the point of the owners come in and decide, this is an asset that's undervalued, I'm buying it and I'm going to make money off the back of this, and at some point I'm going to flip it for 5, 10, 15 times what I paid for it. And so the manager's job is to make sure that the owners are happy, really.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, the manager's job would be to win trophies, but that's la 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 now.
Yeah, but my point on Arteta and Nwaneri was that Arteta's not going to play the kid if he doesn't have those people around him that you mentioned. I'd like to think any decent football manager wouldn't do that. If he doesn't have the people around him, if he doesn't have the right attitude, if he doesn't seem mature enough, he's not going to get playing, and that's what you would hope.
So I'm getting grief now for not. Oh, this is only Arsenal. Why aren't you complaining about Liverpool doing the same thing? It's just happened this week. But if Liverpool were playing Harvey Elliott too young, did Harvey Elliott not miss a lot of time because of an injury?
Yeah.
Was he physically ready for it as well? What age was he when he made his debut?
But this is the thing: is everyone's physical development not different? Harvey Elliott and Ethan Nwaneri aren't physically the same. They weren't physically the same as Wayne Rooney. There is no magic number. This is the age you should make, and I would agree
with you, right? So I don't think I think when you're saying what is the age, it's I don't know. It definitely is case by case, but it just feels like 15 is too young.
What about the 13-year-old kid who played in the North for, was it Glenavon recently? The youngest ever player in the UK, I think. Was it Norman Whiteside's record? But 13.
Yeah.
I mean, and he looked 13, by the way. He was a 13-year-old looking 13-year-old.
It is amateur football, right?
Well,
really it is. No matter what they say, it's amateur football.
But he's still playing against grown men.
It shouldn't be happening
in a competitive league.
It shouldn't be happening. Even in the GAA, you're trying to stop that happening. There are rules now. There is and under the guise of burnout, they're you can't be doing that. Just can't be doing that.
Yeah, and you don't really see it in Gaelic football too much. You'd see maybe in the club game, you'll get the odd 16-year-old supreme talent coming through. But generally speaking, I think clubs around the country are fairly good at nurturing talent and letting them play the minors before they break into the senior team. Because especially in Gaelic football, you have to have developed physically, obviously. I
remember Norman Whiteside playing in the World Cup. He was actually 17, Shifty lads, breaking Pele's records. A man-child like Rooney. Again, in the end, all that stuff caught up with him. The injuries in his 20s caught up with Norman Whiteside. If Rooney had been held back another 18 months and his body had been allowed to physically develop, would he have been a better player in his late 20s and 30s?
I mean, he still finished as a record goal scorer for club and country.
You cannot say he fulfilled his potential. You just can't.
No, but
You just can't. And would he have learned to become a better professional?
Potentially.
That's the bit.
As then he was thrust into the limelight too young.
Well, he clearly didn't have the he didn't have the capability of dealing with the media pressure, which he's talked about, the insane levels of anger that he felt at who was the Jonathan Ross, right? He comes up in the column of the book. They were making jokes about him and the incidents with the prostitutes. Like, would he have fallen into the issues that he later had if he had actually been protected properly as a 16-year-old? Like, I think that, like, I don't remember which manager it was who gave him his debut, but I'm sure he's delighted. And the goal that he scores against Arsenal, that ends the Invincibles run, doesn't it?
Yeah, but
like, it's history and it's amazing and it's an incredible career. And Wayne Rooney has come out the other side of it, but loads of other people get broken. Like, if you look back at Ravel Morrison is still massive clickbait for every Manchester United fan of a certain age, because they think he was the next coming of George Best or whoever it was, and he is now playing football again at a reasonable level, but never fulfilled his potential because whatever, right? Thrust into the limelight, pressure and expectation. The Wayne Rooney is a unicorn who comes through this, but not everybody makes it that far.
Yeah, and some people can't deal with the pressure. I understand that, but then, like, Ryan Giggs was thrust into the limelight at 17. He was clearly through and went on. Yeah, we know the infidelity and all the issues that came about in his personal life that he admitted to in court, but was that to do with the fact that he was thrust into the limelight at 17? I don't know. I don't think so. I think some people's personalities are their personalities.
It's true that some people's personalities are their personalities, but if you had been hanging out with men in their late 20s and early 30s when you were 17, would you be the same person you are now?
Well,
rich men who have access to drink and the trappings of celebrity, would you have been the same person as you are now?
From my and this is obviously not on anywhere near the same level. When I was 16 and 17, I was playing for my local team, Monaghan Town. We won the Ulster Junior Cup, very successful team.
Going out drinking with the lads after the matches.
Yeah, and I remember we won the Ulster Junior Cup maybe 3 or 4 days before I did my 5th year summer exams, and I was the youngest on the team. And
were you drinking 3 or 4 nights before your exams?
Yeah.
And was that, in retrospect, good for you?
But then the rest of them drank for the following 2 or 3 days, whereas I did the one night and then studied for my exams. Do you know? So I don't think it affected me negatively personality wise. I think actually looking at it, like, now I'm the
what if there'd been like the promise of a massive contract, like, and a fast car.
Unfortunately, Monaghan Town FC didn't have the money.
Do you know what I mean, though? What we're talking about here is like
it's the celebrity that changes,
and it's wealth. Like, it's life-changing wealth. I talk about this a good bit, but Stephen Bradley did a Saturday panel with us before he got the Shamrock Rovers job, where he talked about going to the cash machine and seeing his balance and his motivation disappearing straight away. He's like, well, I'm rich now, I don't need to do anything. And he was very highly rated. And I would say those types of outcomes are more likely when players are exposed too young. And I just think that for Arteta, this is a bit of a vanity thing.
I think that's a personality thing, because some people at 17, 18 would look at the bank account and say,
of course it is.
That has given me motivation to work harder because of the money I can see.
Of course, it's not uniform across, but I think that the players who make it out of that, having been exposed super early in his own changing room because of child protection laws.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's like, but when you say it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he's a child.
Yeah, I assume that's under 16 maybe, or under 17 that players have to do that. I don't know what the age is, but that just highlights how young he is. But I mean, if they're doing everything right, and if Arteta feels he has the head on his shoulders,
but Arteta doesn't know, and Arteta's not going to be held accountable. If that player, so Arteta is going to be the Arsenal manager for 2.5, 3 years, more than likely. If he has an amazing career, he'll get 7 years, and that kid will be 22 and may not fulfill his potential. And Arteta won't really be held accountable for that or trace it back, because it's not his job. His job is just to churn. Who's good? Throw the shit at the wall. If some of it sticks, great. Who's next?
What about the likes of, say, right, Michael Owen at 18 was a world superstar. Like, on the Off the Ball Roadshow recently, he said that he felt like by 21 he was past his best. So if that is true, then some players need to be started at 16, 17, because they've only got 4 or 5 years before their plateau. Yeah,
it's very difficult scenario to work out exactly. Like, Michael Owen's hamstrings obviously prevented him from being as fast as he was in a later stage of his career, and so I don't know. Could they have managed his career by not playing him so much? Would his hamstrings have popped anyway? Like, I don't know. It's an
interesting talking point. Yeah, it's and maybe the conversation Arteta has is with Nwaneri's parents. You know, maybe you have to at that age to chat to a parent or the dependent or whoever, the parent or the uncles or whoever it might be, and decide with them in liaison with them if they're ready for
now,
this.
If the manager of the football club where your son hasn't got a full permanent contract comes and says, here, listen, you know, if you know, there's
there's
it's probably several millions in this for you. If I don't, again,
the dollar signs in the eyes.
Can he actually sign a full-time contract yet?
Probably have to be 16, do you? I don't know what the rules are in the Premier League, but yeah, it's an interesting talking point.